So we've already discussed the multiple hats that a game master has to wear before, during, and after a game, as well as the meta skills that are required and also the professional skills that are required. As you dive into it, there's a lot involved. Let's talk about the role of the facilitator, the game master's hat actually when you're at the table. So this is not talking about all the pre-game prep that you've done or the player briefing work, but the hats that are specifically worn at the table. There are a lot of different models how people talk about this, especially in the world of D&D or other tabletop games. I really like to break this down into just two different hats. One hat is the referee or the adjudicator. The other hat is the guide. I also like to think about these as the hat that's worn inside of the game world and the kind of meta hat that's worn outside of the game world. So the referee or the adjudicator is the meta outside of game world hat. That's the role that has to go through the game's purpose, the objectives, introducing people, setting ground rules, managing time, and remaining aligned with the goals. I think they're also the one that has to set the table culture to foster that safe, inclusive environment, encourage openness, mutual respect, and setting those real table rules. This is the one that has to monitor player well-being because it's the player that you have to take care of with this hat. So the referee is also the hat that has to interpret the rules of the game, to make rulings or judgments or progress the narrative or the canon or the situation forward. What the referee says goes, and the players have to learn how to respect the referee. However, the players' characters may not necessarily respect the guide. The guide is the inside world hat, the game master that's inside the game helping the players interpret the world. This is where you need to lead by example to give that immersion necessary, show what types of moves are possible, show what decisions the players can make, and you can do that through the role of a narrator or a non-player character, an NPC, or just a descriptive hand-holding to guide the characters gently through scenarios and through decisions. Now the guide can subtly be inside of the game, trying to support the referee. This is where you can very subtly guide players and participants through scenarios with suggestions or reminders or presenting options, interpreting evidence, or softening the blow of a bad decision or something that happened. The guide hat is your way of coming down to the level of the player characters. This is where the GM gets a chance to lead by example, show the players how deep they need to roleplay, whether it's just surface level decision making, or whether you really expect them to get into character. You can set that tone as the guide. Likewise with the referee, you can stand back and set the expectations of the players at the table. Now, keeping in mind there's probably another couple of hats that are somewhere in the background here. You might have to be writing down information in the game as it goes, or key decisions or points that you might reflect back to later in the hot wash. But if you have the resources or another way of collecting those things, it's a really good idea to delegate that because it's a lot of stuff to think about, especially when you're really wrapped up in the scenario, listening to everyone, making sure it runs on time, adjudicating all the rules. Can be very overwhelming and very immersive, and you might lose those points of contact with the game. So it's really good to have another person help, taking notes or writing memos, or some way to record the game that you can look back on it, or even a way to make sure people's decisions throughout the game are written down somehow so you can look back on it later and don't have to rely on your memory to reconstruct it. Facilitation as a game master can take up nearly 100% of your mental bandwidth. You're juggling the players on the outside of the world, on the inside of the world. You're also thinking forward ahead in time about the narrative and what's to come. You're interpreting the rules, as well as keeping a whole heap of energy up. You may also need to be improvising, acting, doing voices, props, music. It's a seriously hard role if you go all out. And if you take this step into the professional context, if you spend too much bandwidth there, you can lose out a little bit on the aims and objectives. You get better with practice, but it's an incredibly hard role. But that's why you're here, to learn a little bit more about what's involved. Likewise, if you run a home game of D&D or a game night, you're probably going to be fine. But you can see how it can become complex quite quickly. To summarise, I think that the game master wears two major hats at the table, the referee and the guide. The referee keeps the players in check, the guide keeps hand-holding the player characters inside of the game. One outside, one inside the game. And combined, they make sure the game goes smoothly for the players and the player characters. Everyone sticks to the rules and the objective. Everyone has fun. The table culture is good. And hopefully, the scenario goes well. You meet your aims and objectives. We're next going to talk about how you actually guide those discussion topics. What are the actual skills of good facilitation? Thanks for watching. These lessons will be dropping weekly on YouTube, but if you want to get them all right now, you can take the foundation course for free on our website, where you will also get the lesson notes, summaries, assignments, checklists that guide you through all the learning objectives we've covered. At the end of that course, you'll also get a certificate of completion and an invite to our directory and community, where you can meet some other game masters and use the Long Game Project as a platform to showcase your work. If you want to take your game mastery further, completion of this course is a prerequisite to unlock the advanced professional course, along with the Game Master track, where we dive deeper into the content and further along the skill tree. You can also check out some of our other free tools in the description below, including our tabletop exercise starter kit, our scenario generator, the trove of existing scenarios, our SOP checklist library, and our new RPG character sheet, CV, and LinkedIn template, which is really cool. I did mine this morning, and now all my network knows that my dump stat is probably Dex, and I'm definitely neutral good. Roll on!